So welcome guys here on the CCSK examination preparation guideline, you can say here. So I will be providing you enough information like how do we prepare for the examination, and definitely the major uh, goal is to understand the content and how exactly you should approach the examination here, right? So starting with my introduction, my full name is Rajiv Kumar, and I'm providing support to multiple organizations, specifically in designing and building their solutions in the information security and the cloud security solutions. So with this, let's get started and let's focus on the content which we have for today. The goal here is to understand how exactly you should approach the CCSK examination and how exactly you should be able to crack the examination very easily there. So first, let me start with that introduction itself. So the objective. So for objective of this particular session is to understand. So first thing, brief on certificate of cloud security knowledge. So what exactly the certification is all about, what exactly we will be covering in the entire certification course, and how exactly it will help you in the cloud security domain, right? So that is the first thing we will start discussing with. Next, we will understand what are the domains we have here in the CCSK. So that is the major thing. You know, when it comes to the CCSK domains, it means there are various different types of topics we are actually going to understand in the cloud security. When it comes to cloud security, we have the traditional infrastructure, and much of the operations you are doing in your traditional environment is going to be same even on the cloud as well. But definitely, there are some new things has been added here. Okay, so in the meantime, let's start here. So as I told that there are multiple different operations we are doing in our traditional IT environment as well, and the very much same thing we have even on the cloud as well. Definitely, there are some new key things has been added here. When it comes to new key things, what I'm focusing on here is basically the management console. When you are going to use and operate cloud environment, the management console is basically one of the focal point we have there. And definitely, whenever you implement control, when it comes to security, it means you are focusing on implementation of control to reduce the risk. And definitely, you first need to understand what are the risks available. So in CCSK, you will be covering those area which, as a cloud security professional, you should know there, right? And definitely understand the different set of risks which may possible on the cloud environment, and accordingly you need to react, you need to provide the better solutions as well there, right? So the same thing is basically discussed in all the domains which we have under the CCSK. Although remember one thing, this is one of the ideal certification who is new in the cloud security and who is trying to move into the security domain, specifically in the cloud, right? Now, why exactly I'm saying that? Because in CCSK, Certificate of Cloud Security Knowledge, everything what we have here is basically starting from very much of basics, right? So when it comes to basic, it means you are going to understand first what exactly the cloud is. So I hope this is one of the very basic question: what exactly the cloud is, why we should care about the cloud, you know, and what are the uh, different environment we are actually getting into the cloud there, and how exactly the security approach should be different when it comes to cloud. Remember one thing, that when you go into the cloud is basically a shared responsibility model, right? And when it comes to shared responsibility model, we're talking about that we have the provider, cloud provider, and cloud consumer here. Definitely in between, we have some more roles as well, which will help you to, operate smoothly on the cloud environment. And definitely you require their help as well to make sure that you know all the. So yeah, so what I was actually saying, that cloud is basically falls under the shared responsibility model, and definitely in the shared responsibility model, we need to understand that there's certain group of user is having a certain responsibility. Specifically, I'm talking about consumers group, and then the cloud provider itself is having some responsibility to make sure that whatever the processing you are doing on their infrastructure, that 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 is properly secured. So we have the infrastructure environment, and in the infrastructure itself, we have two type of infrastructure: virtual and physical. Physical infrastructure, specifically in the public cloud, is always the responsibility of your provider, and consumer may have the virtual responsibility, virtual layer responsibility as well. So we'll discuss on the same here. So there are total of 14 different domains we have in the CCSK. Now, definitely when it comes to 14 different domain, it means 14 different area which we are actually going to learn in the CCSK. But again, it's not a very much of a point of worry here, because definitely after seeing this 14 different domain means there are lots of things to read out. No, every domain is going to provide you the overview of that domain. It means when it comes to application security, what are the application security first thing, what are the best practices you need to follow, and how exactly it is different in the cloud environment. So mostly in each of the domain, that is how they had actually arranged, and what are the focus area based on the risk you have to keep watching it out. That is what exactly is there. So we'll see what are the domains we have and which domain you have to focus more when it comes to the examination. It means when you're preparing for the CCSK examination, which domain you should focus more on that, right? Again, apart from the book, so remember there are three documentations available for the CCSK examination, and the questions you will be expecting from all of these three documentation. So one is the version 4 guidance. So current version for the CCSK is version 4. So most of the questions you will be getting from the version 4 guidance, and that is what I'm actually talking about here. So this CCSK domain is basically the part is actually having all those 14 domains, which is the part of the version 4 guidance, right? But apart from this version 4 guidance, we also have to understand and go through with some of the other documentation, and one of the documentation we have is called as CCM, that is called Cloud Control Metrics. Now, Cloud Control Metrics is very helpful as a customer, as a cloud provider, and as a cloud auditor, because it will provide you all the different references which will help you to do the audit, which will help you to understand the security posture of the cloud provider. And definitely as a cloud provider, what are the key things I have to focus on while offering services to my customers. So CCM is very, very much important documentation here. But from the examination point of view, what are the columns? So again, remember, CCM document is basically one of the Excel file. And in that Excel file, we have certain columns which you have to actually focus on when it comes to the examination. But definitely before that, you should be very much clear that what this CCM is going to do for you, right? So we'll see on that particular part as well. But apart from the CCM, we have one more documentation available there, that is called ENISA. So European nations, they had actually given one of the documentation for the risk which is available around the cloud, right? It is basically a different kind of risk, like what about if the your cloud provider has been acquired by different organization, right? So that is one of the risk. Another thing is what about if you are not having proper visibility over the cloud environment which is operated by your cloud provider itself. So ENISA documentation is basically focusing on the key risk which you're going to face when you're moving into the cloud, right? So not only from the examination perspective, but definitely. So this is the another documentation we have, that is ENISA risk report. And once we understood, we will discuss some of the questions which we had recently faced in the examination. And accordingly, we will see what is the best approach for solving these questions. So that is another key thing we are going to check it out. So question discussion. So that is the entire objective of the session here. So let me move forward and proceed to the first section here, that is brief on the certificate of cloud security knowledge. Now, this certification CCSK is basically coming from Cloud Security Alliance, right? And when I focus on the Cloud Security Alliance itself here. So it's one of the not-for-profit organization which is having focus, and you can say they are promoting the use of best practices for providing security assurance within the cloud environment. So Cloud Security Alliance has actually published lots of different white papers which will help you to implement the control when you're migrating into the cloud environment. And no matter what kind of cloud provider you are actually utilizing, whether it is the SaaS provider, software as a service provider, whether it is PaaS, or whether it is infrastructure service environment. In all of these category, there are some risk available. How do we tackle those risks? That is what exactly the focus of Cloud Security Alliance, and they had published different white paper for the different issues you may face, and accordingly what are the best practices you should follow to mitigate those risks. I mean, if you are concerned about the IAM implementation, identity and access management implementation, so Cloud Security Alliance has published a separate white paper only for IAM there, which will help you to understand the IAM first, then key focus area when you're moving into the cloud, and accordingly, what are the risks available and how exactly you should approach for that particular risk, so you can make sure that you can manage the risk based on the risk appetite of the organization. Right. Also, it will definitely helping you to achieve the relevant knowledge through which you can participate and actively help your organization achieve a secure posture within the environment, right? So that is what the goal of the Cloud Security Alliance. And again, for that, Cloud Security Alliance has provided CCSK certification. So Certificate of Cloud Security Knowledge is one of the recognized now one of the certifications available under the cloud security. Remember, we have other vendors also who actually offer cloud security certification, like we have CCSP, which is, you can say that you can achieve the next level after that. To CCSK, you can move forward. Apart from that, recently EC Council has also released one certification on cloud security, right? But again, that is actually on a separate track, because they had discussed a lot on the technical aspect of the cloud security. But CCSK is not focusing only on the technical level, but some of the best practices you should manage when you're moving onto the cloud there. So they're more concerned on the risk, and accordingly, what are the best practices available to manage those risks there, right? So this is all about the CSA, Cloud Security Alliance. One important thing, because definitely now I will be discussing about those 14 domain and what should be your focus area when it comes to the examination. So in CCSK, as I told that we are having total of 14 different areas. And now I will be giving you hints like what domain you should focus on. Definitely there are some key questions you will be facing it when it comes to the examination here. So let me just explain each of the domain first for you there. When it comes to the different domain or different area within the cloud environment, cloud computing concept and architecture is one of the most relevant domain for any kind of IT guys there. And the reason is that nowadays most of the operations is happening onto the cloud environment for any level of organization itself. Right? Now, because definitely they are attached with the cloud, so they should know what exactly the cloud is, and not only like on the higher level, but also they should understand how exactly the cloud operates. Because unless you are aware about how cloud operates, it's not very useful to provide the solutions accordingly, right? So in the first chapter, or you can say in the first domain, we will be discussing about what exactly the cloud all about is, right? Like on a very high level basis, I can tell here that cloud is all about doing processing over the internet. Right? So we have a cloud provider who is having their own data center, and with the help of that data center resources, you will be performing your operations. Now, whether that operation is for your web server, for your SQL database server, no matter what exactly operations you are performing, that can be done by the third party offered data center. Now that is what I'm actually talking. Now this point I am actually talking about the public cloud, right? It means if you're using some third-party cloud provider, there you're actually using a public cloud. But definitely there is a complete possibility that you are building your own private cloud environment because your risk appetite is pretty much lower. You cannot share your information to the third party. Let's take an example of your of the government's or the military's environment there. They can't share these informations to the public environment where the chances of compromise is higher. So in the first chapter, we will be understanding what is cloud, then the different service model available under the cloud. Like we have software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure service. So what is the key difference between them? And when it comes to the selection of any of the service model, what should be the key criteria? Generally, when it comes to the criteria, we are using cost, and the second criteria, major criteria we are using is security. So cost and security is one of the major criteria we have, but definitely we have other criteria also. When it comes to the selection of cloud provider, we have to actually approach this criteria for the selection. Also, when you are selecting any of the service provider, so I'm talking about the cloud service provider. When it comes to selection of any cloud service provider, there are some documentations available from Cloud Security Alliance itself. So Cloud Security Alliance has given one important documentation that is called CAC report. So this is called as Continuous Assessment Initiative Questionnaire. In other words, you can also tell Common Assessment Initiative Questionnaire. So as a cloud consumer, how can I gain trust over the cloud provider? For that, there is useful information available under the CAC. So there's a set of questions prepared by CSA, and voluntarily each of the cloud provider, whether it is AWS, whether it is Microsoft Azure, Alibaba, Oracle Cloud, any one of them is going to participate and will provide the response of those questions. And this documentation is publicly available onto the CSA website. Also, you can visit cloud provider website, and from there also you can download. So all you have to just search cloud secure, AWS compliance program, or might be Azure compliance program, and that one will help you to get this documentation. Now, in this documentation, you will be having responses from the cloud provider, or might be some of your questions you already have, right? And based on that response, you can shortlist one of the cloud provider for your services. So in the same domain, we will be discussing about what is cloud, what are the different service model of the cloud, what is the criteria for selection of a particular service model, what are the different deployment model of the cloud, and then the architectural, from the architectural point of view, if you need to connect with any of the platform, how exactly the connection will go. I mean, from the internet, user will be requesting to which service, and that service will forward to what controller, and how those controller is communicating with the internal hardwares which is present onto the cloud environment. That is what we are going to discuss under the architecture. One important thing, that your cloud is basically made up of multiple things. Hypervisor is one of the important component. So one key things, or one key question you might be facing in your examination, that whether cloud is using virtualization or not. So definitely with virtualization, cloud is basically possible, because when it comes to the cloud, there are 5 key features discussed under the cloud. One of these called as broad network access, resource pooling. I'm just writing some of the short name here. So broad network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, right? On-demand self-service, and then measured service. So these are the 5 key features discussed there. And that is also we will be discussing in the cloud computing. The very next domain means, after understanding on the cloud part, The very next domain is discussing about how the governance will change on the cloud, or the risk will change over the cloud. It means as a consumer, when you're moving onto the cloud environment, how the governance and risk will be changed. Remember, cloud is basically falls under the shared responsibility model. It means there is always a reliance on your cloud provider for some of your operations. So when we have a shared responsibility model, how the governance will be different in the cloud, and how the risk management will change. Means, are you able to make all the risk management decision, or you have to wait for your provider to provide you the sufficient information, and on top of that you will be making your changes. So that is what we have under the governance and risk management, right? Now these two chapters are pretty much important for your examination as well, because most of the questions you will be first getting it from these two chapters there. Like some of them is what the cloud computing is made of. So virtualization, one of the critical component. Second thing, what are the factors of selection of a particular cloud, right? And everything is basically the part of the same. Another thing, how the governance is getting changed. What are the component of risk? So like one of the questions generally ask you, what are the different component of the risk, right? And one of the response might be you will be getting it there. So whenever there is a risk, whether we can do either the mitigation of the risk, or might be we can transfer the risk, or might be we can uh, accept the risk or reject the risk, right? So these are the four major component of the risk. So that is another questions you may be facing in your examination. But again, as I told, that these are the two critical domains we have where you will be getting most of the questions. From the legal part and from the compliance part. So from the legal part, there is one question generally they will ask you that, and specifically from the legal part, they are very much concerned about the data protection law available in different countries. Specifically, GDPR, they are focusing on. Now, definitely, somehow every country is basically connected with European Unions, right? So GDPR is one of the must to ask question there in any of the security based examination. And again, cloud security itself is one of the security based examinations. So definitely one question you will be getting from there. But another topic or another question you may be getting from this particular chapter is basically what is the law available from Japan for the data protection. So this is the another common question they will be asking you in the CCSK examination. Rest of them means apart from that, there is no any other questions you will be getting from this domain. It means only these two topic will be enough. Similarly, under the audit, so audit is the another critical activity. Now, when you are moving in the cloud, you have to get assurance whether the cloud provider is offering you the secure services and whatever we had agreed on SLA, service level agreement. Are we getting it, or is just the fake promises made by the provider? So for that verification, compliance and audit is one of the key tool you have. Remember, in the cloud, you will be not doing assessment, right? You are very much relying on the audit by third party. So you can't do your own assessment on the cloud provider platform. You have to rely on to the audit report published by well-known audit firms like KPMG and Y. These are actually going to do the auditing and will provide you the sufficient report to believe on your cloud providers. So this is the another domain which is very, very much critical, not only in the real world environment when you are making some decision, but also for the examination. Right. Another thing, we have the information governance. How do we operate over the information? And then management plane and business continuity. Now this domain is another the critical domain we have, management plane and business continuity. So their main focus is that whenever you need to connect with any of the cloud platform, you require an interface. So when you are using Azure, Microsoft Azure, Azure portal is the management plane which will help you to connect with. And in case of AWS, we have the AWS management console, which will help you to interact with. So AWS Management Console and Azure portal is basically the management plane to interact with the cloud providers. So this management plane is basically API enabled. It means whatever you want to provision, you just need to click on that service. It will hit the relevant API, and that API will talk to the controller which is present in the cloud environment, and it will help you to interact and manage those services. So definitely it's one of the critical thing or critical service we have. If this management plane is compromised, you must assume that all of the services which is present in the cloud environment will be going to be in question. Right? So this is one of the reason that you have to focus on how exactly we should go and improve the security for the management plane. Even you are outsourcing the responsibility for the uptime to the third party, but there are some key risks which itself your provider will not able to manage. Let's suppose that you are purchasing the infrastructure as a service and you are creating your own virtual machine for the operations. There is a complete possibility that this virtual machine can go down, specifically if you have only one VM. So how do we plan the business continuity on the cloud environment? That is the another key things is actually the focus of this chapter. So first is what is business continuity? So in case of in event of any kind of in event of any kind of disaster, how do we manage the continuity of the business with a limited number of resources? That is what the business continuity is focusing on. And when you're moving in the cloud environment, how exactly this business continuity will change? Because definitely your provider is doing something for you. And now on top of that, you have to understand what exactly the gap available in the control for the availability and how can you implement. Remember, most of the cloud provider has exposed their API so you can integrate the third-party solutions very easily. And even for the business continuity, like taking the backup and importing into the another cloud storage. So instead, I mean to say, when you can take backup from Azure and you can store it in some another cloud provider. So that is the complete possibility, right? So this is the another key thing which you should focus when you're moving on to the CCSK examination there. Now the another domains we have is the infrastructure security. So in infrastructure security, we will be focusing on the virtual infrastructure of the cloud. And there are three key components we have here. One is the compute, which itself is basically focusing on the processors and the RAM. Another one is the storage, where volume storage, object storage is there. And the another one we have is basically the virtual network, which will help you to set up a connectivity with your on-prem environment, and also we will help you to transmit the data. But when you're using these virtual resources, definitely there's some key risk. Like under the compute, you may be utilizing the VM, or you are using containers, right? Or you're using serverless computing. Now, in any of the workload, whatever you're using, there's some specific risk associated with each of the workload. Like when it comes to the container, we are focusing on the image security. So image, which will help you to fire up the container, needs to be secured. And for the security, you are also might be utilizing the DevOps approach there, where you are continuously building the images for the environment and also making sure that updated image is the part of the production environment instead of the outdated image. Right. So this is under the infrastructure security. We will be focusing on all these components which will help you to build a secure compute and network environment. Now, why not storage here? Because for the storage specifically, we have a separate domain, which you can see here, data security and encryption. So in this domain, the two major storage we have, volume-based storage and object-based storage. But definitely this is the part of the infrastructure service. On top of that, we have PaaS and SaaS. So what are the different set of storage available there? What is the risk on the storage and what controls? Remember, encryption is one of the major control available on the cloud. whether you are creating, storing, transmitting, or destroying the data. In all of these particular phases, encryption will play important role. Now remember, you are storing data to the third party environment. So you don't have control to destroy their hard disk. Like previously in our on-prem environment, whenever sensitive data, whenever any sensitive hard disk is done with their task, we make sure that that hard disk is destroyed or kept it securely. But again, we are not the owner of the hard disk here in case of cloud environment. So it's not possible that we can, do such destruction or keeping the hard disk in a safe location there. Encryption is making sure that even if the information is available to the cloud provider, they are not able to utilize it. Remember, this time risk is not only from the another consumer, because cloud is a multi-tenant environment. Risk is also because of the cloud provider, because your environment is managed by third party, right? So this is going to focus there. Then virtualization and container, where we were discussing on the virtualization and incident responses. So in cloud, how the incident response will change, that is another key thing we'll check. And apart from that, application security, which is focusing on the application domain here, security as a service, identity and access management, and some of the related technology like big data, IoT, machine learning. So they are actually the ideal platform to utilize, in ideal services to utilize cloud platform. So these all things is going to be the part of the cloud security. But apart from these domains, two more documentation which is required to pass your examination. One of them is cloud control metrics. So current version which we are using in the examination is version 3.01, but right now the updated version came, and that is version 4.0. So this is the updated version of the cloud control metrics. As I told, this document will help as an auditor, as a consumer, and as a provider to build a secure environment. And apart from that, there is a risk documentations for the cloud, and that is there in the NISA. So if you're specifically from cloud control metrics, there's some key question they will ask you. So let me just open cloud control metrics for you all, so I can explain what questions generally you will be facing it there. So if you can see here, these are the different questionnaire given there. Let me just check if I have the same template available. So you can see we have this implementation guideline given there under the CCM 4.0 here, and even the CAC report, which is basically mapped, right? So these are the authors which is available. Change log, these are the some of the changes which has actually happened there. So in the CCM, specifically, there are some control domains we have, like for application security and others, right? So from the CCM, the key question they will ask you. So there are major columns we have here. Some of the major columns are like what exactly CCM is. So first, just that is the first questions you have, and how exactly it is relevant. So remember, CCM will help you to implement the control, and how to implement that control, that is discussed under the version 4 guidance. So this is one of the key questions you may face in your examination. What is the difference between CCM and CCSK version 4 guidance? Right. Another thing, under the CCM, there are some columns we have like domain ID, service model, scope applicability, architectural relevance. So these are the information. So if you can keep remembering those columns and their informations given there, that is enough for cracking the examination. Right. So this is some of the things which you have to actually focus when it comes to the examination. Remember, when it comes to the examination, so the CCSK examination total duration is 90 minutes, and within 90 minutes you are going to attempt the 60 questions, right? And you need to score 80% to pass the examination, right? The good thing is that it's an open book examination. It means you can have all the documentations open at the same time, right? You can have open all this documentation at the same time when you're doing the examination. And the another good thing is that you will be getting two coupons, or you can two examination attempt for doing the CCSK. It means in a single examination coupon, you will be getting two attempts. So due to any reason, if you're not able to succeed in the first attempt, second attempt, you can start immediately. And to do the examination, you have to visit a website, and you can also write on the Google here, CCSK examination online. And it will take you to the website where from where there you can actually do your examination. So let me just show you what exactly page you have to actually open. So if I go to Google directly here I can type CCSK exam online login or log online, whatever. And if you can see here, it's the first link which is coming it out itself is taking you to the same website. So for your reference, I'm just sending you this link. So what you have to do first, you have to create an account on the CC Cloud Security Alliance website. And after creating the account, go there. If you had already purchased the voucher, then encash the voucher there only, and you will be getting the two attempts, and immediately you can start the examination. Remember, the coupon is valid for 1 year. So within 1 year, you can attempt the examination anytime. Okay, so I'm getting a question here that report on the version 4 cloud control metrics. So again, repeating for the cloud control metrics, the questions you will be getting is 4 different. First, the similarity or the difference between CCSK version 4 guidance and CCM. So remember, CCM will tell you what control to implement, and version 4 tell you how to implement. Okay, so that is the first thing. Second thing, under the CCM, you will be getting the name of the domain, right? Like application security. And then you will be having control ID. So 01, 02, something like that you will be getting, like AIS01, AIS02. So here 02 is representing the second control in the given domain. So they can ask you the question like what exactly the 02 is mean here. So you can easily say it is the second domain under the same domain, a second control under the same domain. Yeah. Apart from that, under the CCM, you will be getting a question, what are the component falls under the architectural relevance column? So there is a column available under the CCM architectural relevance, and the part of and the component which is falls under the architectural relevance is compute, storage, network, infrastructure. So these are the component which is the part of the architectural. So you will be getting option and you have to select one of them. Similarly, they will ask you what is the component falls under the scope applicability column under the CCM. So scope applicability is basically having all the relevant standards available around the world which you need to implement when it comes to a certain domain. Right? So that is another key thing. And finally, service model. So that is the only question they will ask you from the CCM documentation. I hope this is fine for you. So without wasting a time, let's take some of the sample question which will help you to understand the way in the CCSK examination you're facing the question and how you should approach. Like in front of you, one question you can see here, select the best definition of compliance from the options below. It means now it is asking what is the definition of compliance. And again, it's not only towards the cloud compliance definition, whether you're operating under the traditional IT environment or in the cloud is same. When it comes to D, okay, and so I can see is B and C as well. So if you see here, if you come to B, diligent habit of good security practice and recording of the same, see, under the compliance, definitely we should implement the best practices there. But compliance is all about, first you should know what are the different kind of obligations which you need to follow and adhere to, and making sure that you are prioritizing yourself to implement it there. It means in this question, option number D is the correct answer. Awareness and adherence to obligations, including the assessment and prioritization of corrective actions deemed necessary and appropriate. So compliance is, let's suppose I need to compile with GDPR. So am I aware about that I'm having some informations related to European unions, and I have to make sure that I am adhering to their instructions or the the control which I need to follow there, right? So compliance is basically adhering to that. Okay, so the best answer here is, so let me just check the response here. Yeah, so the correct answer is awareness and adherence to obligations, including the assessment and prioritization of the corrective actions. Okay, let me take you the second question here. And the second question is, network logs from cloud providers are typically flow records, not the full packet capture. Now, yes, so you will be getting one more kind of question there, whether it is the true or false statement. Network log, whenever you're trying to capture, and you can take an example of in Microsoft Azure, we have a packet capturing tools available there. So whenever you capture the packets there, basically they are the flow records, means data flowing from one point to another, but not exactly the full packet captures, what you can do with the help of tools like Wireshark and others. It's a very limited information. And again, it's actually very much obvious here, because what the provider is basically allowing you, only that information you're able to see. They can't allow you to see the full packet captures. And the reason is very simple. You are not the only person who is having services on the cloud environment. Other customers are also there. You can't share you all the full information. So yes, the correct answer is true here. Third question we have here, which concept provides the abstraction needed for resource pool? Now remember, abstraction is one of the concept which is possible because of a certain tool. But here it is not asking a tool, it is asking the concept name, right? So I can see some of you is given. So again, just trying to let you clarify here, hypervisor is basically the name of the tool, and concept of abstraction is basically virtualization, right? So whenever you're implementing hypervisor, it will help you to do the abstraction, and this is one of the concept given and possible with the help of virtualization here. So because here it is asking the concept, not the tool, so you should select here virtualization. So some of you had already given a correct answer, virtualization. So remember, hypervisor like VMware ESXi, Hyper-V, these are the name of the tools. So correct answer for this question is virtualization. Perfect. Next question for you. Which concept is a mapping of an identity, including the role, personas, and attribute to an authorization? So it's the question is very much simple and straightforward. When you are mapping identity and along with the roles and and based on their attributes as well there, what exactly it is called as? So it is actually looking for a definition here. So I think this is one of the very common question under the IAM. So mapping of identity with including the role, person, and attribute is basically called as entitlement. So I can see some of you had given access control. Remember, access control will help you to restrict on some of the activity. But first you need to map the role based on the attribute and provide the proper authorization. So first you need to create an entitlement table, which is the mapping of role and their permission, right? So here the correct response is B, which is entitlement. Okay, guys, great. So let's move on to the next question. Again, a true and false statement for you. All cloud service utilize virtualization technology, whether it is a true or false statement. Remember, with virtualization, you will be expecting some of the features, right? Like elasticity. So if you wanted to get the rapid elasticity is possible because of the virtualization, and definitely fault tolerance other component as well. So it is very true that all cloud service utilize the virtualization technology, so we can share the resource over the internet to any of the user. So yes, correct answer is true. Perfect. Let's move on to the next question. And the next question is, how does a running application, and this time I had limited the scope. I mean, I had given only you two options for you. So you can select one of the best response here. So how does running application or distinct virtual network and only connecting network as needed is going to help you? What it is asking that if you are dividing the virtual network and then keeping your application, different application or different virtual network, is it going, if it is going to help you, and if it is, then how? So yes, it is going to help you if you're keeping different application to the different virtual network. It is going to help you, and how? If one of the network is compromised, your other applications are safe. It means it is only going to impact the application which is present on that network segment. So it is basically going to reduce the blast radius. So what is that? So whenever there is a blast, radius defines the impact on your organization, right? Same thing. So if you're dividing the network into smaller segment, the radius is going to be small, and definitely it will help protect your other applications. So option number B is the correct response here. Okay, so coming to the next question, guys, here, how can virtual machine communication bypass network security control? So whenever there is a communication between virtual network, how exactly it is going to bypass the security control? VM communication may use virtual network onto the same hardware host, and yes, it is correct. There is a complete possibility that you have a host machine, and inside that host machine we have 2 or 3 or 4 virtual machines which belongs to different customer. Whenever there is a communication happening between them, it is not visible to your security device which is present on outside that host. So if it is not able to capture what is happening inside, it is not good for the security control because you don't have the visibility. So this lack of visibility is going to create an issue for you. So definitely here the correct answer is A, right? So yes is the correct answer. Moving to the next question here. Improper management of VM instances causing customer VM to be commingled with other customer system. So what exactly this is called as? So if you can see, yes, correct here. The option number B, using compromised VM to exploit a hypervisor used to take control of other VM. So if one of the VM is compromised, from there, attacker may able to exploit the hypervisor, which is definitely it is called as VM escape, correct? And from there, it can take control of the other VMs as well. So it is actually going to risk for each of the VMs available there. But here, in established in VM management, causing the VM routing errors, right? So this is one of the best response here. Okay, and this is because if you fail to do the VM patch management and VM management, there routing errors can actually possible. Again, see, lack of vulnerability management standards is not actually talking about here, like improper management of VM instances causing customer to commingle with other customer system, right? So again, instability in VM management can create this issue. If vulnerability you're not able to manage, see, you have to actually prioritize here. Okay, anyway, we have a limited time here, so let me just move on to the next question. In volume storage, what method is often used to support resiliency and security? So resiliency basically is making sure that your volume is up and available. So one of the technique in the cloud environment we use, which is very much similar to the RAID solution, redundant array of independent disk in the traditional environment, that is called data dispersion here. So data dispersion is basically dividing the storage into smaller chunks, replicating in multiple locations. So even one of the chunk is down, we can still have the data up and running, right? So data dispersion is making sure that your data is always available to you. Coming to the last question here for now. Now, I hope you are able to get like what kind of questions you will be facing in the examination. So it's not very hard. If you had already gone through the documentation, definitely it is very easy for you. But again, if you had not taken the content, you must have to go through the content one time. It will definitely help you there. So last question is, what is true for security as it relates to the cloud network infrastructure? You should implement a default deny, and definitely in a cloud environment, specifically a firewall, we need to make sure that default deny is enabled, which is making sure nothing is allowed until unless you are going to allow them. So that is the best approach in a cloud environment. So yes, the correct answer is C here, right? So this is, see, these are the sample questions I had actually presented to you, and might be some of the same questions you will be facing in the examination as well. But the questions are going to be very much similar like that. It's not a very hard examination. All it required some little bit of preparation. And as I told that it's open book examination, it means you have a liberty to open the book while you're doing the examination, right? So go forward and take the examination. And if you have any questions, definitely let me know there.